I'd like to begin by discussing something which I think one could honestly characterize as a constant irritant, a source of huge frustration to just about everybody who works in the field of education. I'm speaking, of course, about the BCeSIS computer system, something that principals and vice principals use, teachers have to use, ministry staff, of course, have to try and sort out some of the problems while they're trying to collect all of the data that's important for the ministry to gather. In January of this year, the then Minister of Education, the member for Vancouver Fairview, said that a consultant would be hired to assess if BCeSIS was worth keeping. Later on, the current minister said, and I quote, "It has been characterized by more problems than one would ever want from a new electronic information system. And the process of reviewing that continues, and we do hope to find some ways to make the BCeSIS system a better product in the near future." So my question is, through you, Honourable Chair, could the Minister advise the House as to what the status of this review is?
Thank you, and thank the member for his question. Gartner Consulting has indeed been engaged to look at BCeSIS and the improvement of that product. They have been meeting with all the school districts in the province to understand the experience and circumstance in a variety of all of the school districts. They have also met recently with the BC Teachers Federation to discuss it with them, and their report is very close to completion, and we expect to see the product within weeks.
Member. Thank you, Honourable Chair. So within weeks. That's good to hear. Can I ask through you, Honourable Chair, can I ask the Minister how many school districts are currently using the BCeSIS system?
The answer to the skill testing question, Madam Speaker, is 56 school districts.
Member. Thank you, Honourable Chair. Could the Minister also inform the House as to the number of independent schools who are using the BCeSIS system?
And that's an even more profoundly skill testing question than the earlier one. It is being tracked down through the magic of BlackBerry and computer world, but perhaps rather than have the critic wait for the answer, we'll introduce it as it comes in, which will probably be a matter of minutes, but we shouldn't waste the time.
Member. Thank you, Honourable Chair. And now to a slightly more complicated skill testing question. And I have asked this question in previous estimates and had to wait for several months to get an answer because it was not at hand, but hopefully now, having asked this question before, the information will have been gathered this time. I'd like to know, through you, Honourable Chair, I'd like to know from the Minister, how much has the Ministry spent to date on the BCeSIS system? What is it costing the government to try to keep BCeSIS going in the short term while perhaps a longer-term fix is chosen and implemented? And what does the Minister expect to have spent overall on an ongoing basis for this system? Minister.
Thank you. I've got more detail here than I'm sure the member ever dreamed of receiving in an estimates process, but pleased to do that. In the years since 2003-2004, which was the initial year of expenditure with respect to the system, on capital, including licenses and customizations, $15,899,598 on capital. On the operating side, software licenses, Oracle, $5,207,140. On operating and support, over these now almost a decade, $61,333,000. On incentive grants to school districts, $6,623,703, and the gross operating costs, $73,163,843, producing a grand total for capital and operating costs through the decade of $89,063,441.
Member for Skeena.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Wow, that's an awful lot of money for a system that still doesn't work. Could I ask, through your Honourable Chair, if the Ministry has got projected costs for an alternative system that meets the needs of the school system? Because obviously, if the Gartner report comes in and says that in spite of all the money that's been put into this system, it simply is not salvageable. How much has the Ministry built into the current budget to cover the problems in the short term and start on a long-term solution? So what I'd like to know is, what are the projected costs for an alternative system, and what monies have been put into this year's budget to cover the problems in the short term and start on a long-term solution, if indeed one is needed?
Thank you, Honourable Chair. And the first thing that we would say to the education critic is that his his assessment that the system does not work is neither fair nor accurate. The system does work. It is a system which has had some challenges, but that is not uncharacteristic of large computerized systems to deal with the very large cohort of students and the number of districts that we have across the province. So we in fact feel that despite being a leader here, despite being one of the first in Canada and North America, pardon me, to move in this direction, that the system has been improved. The code system, for example, has been corrected. We are certainly feeling that the system is much improved, that it is working quite effectively. As I said in the first response to the member's question, the company that we brought on to do the advising on the system is to advise us how the system can be further improved. Are there products that we can add to the system? But the experience here, I think, is probably reminiscent of both the challenges and the opportunities that occur when, for example, with the electronic health record in the Ministry of Health, one undertakes a bold initiative to start having a comprehensive understanding of patient information in the province. Similarly, this is what we're attempting to do in respect of the students in the province, and there's I think over 500,000 of them. That's a pretty big step to draw all that information together and manage it in an effective fashion. But we are confident that BCeSIS has improved, and that it will be an important tool in terms of building a better education system in British Columbia.
Member.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. It's not as though, Honourable Chair, I'm trying to make out that the system is completely useless. However, it does crash on a regular basis. In fact, a week ago today, I was phoned by a member of the press. Usually I get phoned by frustrated teachers when the system completely crashes, but on this occasion I was called by a member of the press who, let's give the press some due, a fellow in Kamloops who follows this BCeSIS system very, very closely, and he said that just a week ago, once again, it had crashed. Obviously, a large system like this has to be able to have the capacity to undertake hundreds of people going on it at any one time. And I think that it's at those particular times, you know, report card time, the beginning of the school year, when all the data is being put in for the creation of classes, etc., that the system seems to have the biggest problems. But I certainly want the Minister to be aware. Maybe he hasn't been doing the job long enough yet to have his email box full of frustrated teachers, etc. But this still is very much an ongoing problem with BCeSIS. But I want to move on, Honourable Chair. In late 2010, the company that designed BCeSIS was bought over by Pearson, and they have announced that they're no longer even going to support BCeSIS after 2012. Through you, Honourable Chair, can the Minister confirm if this is true, and if so, in view of this, does the Ministry intend on committing funding support to assist school districts on moving ahead and away from this system if indeed the Gartner report comes out and says that's the best thing for the government to do?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We believe the system stability problems which the member referenced have been resolved. I mentioned earlier correction of codes. We believe that will be useful in terms of system stability. So we're satisfied that we're moving in the right direction with respect to that. Again, there's probably no system in the world that doesn't periodically experience challenges, but obviously we want to minimize those, and we're satisfied that we are moving in the direction of minimizing those. The purpose of the Gartner report will be indeed to review our options as a ministry and as a government in respect of the future of BCeSIS, whether the best option might be to support the system internally, have the ministry attempt to manage it, or to introduce a new system partnership with another firm. Those are options which we are likely to see from Gartner, and of course when we are in receipt of the report sometime in the weeks ahead, we will begin the process of reviewing those options and making the best choice for not only the taxpayers of British Columbia, but for the students and the school districts of British Columbia.
Member for Skeena.
Honourable Chair, once the government has reviewed the Gartner report, will they be making that report public?
Minister of Education.
Thank you. We would be releasing that report in due course in compliance with the rules of the province of British Columbia.
Member.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. The Minister has alluded to the fact that there has been lots of input into the Gartner report from all those affected and all those who work with BCeSIS. As the government looks at its responses once it receives that report, will they also be seeking input from those that use the system, teachers, administrators, board members, as to helping in making that decision?
Minister.
Your Honourable Chair, I think that is the shortest answer I've ever heard from the Minister of Education in my 6 years here. That's one final question, Honourable Chair, in regard to BCeSIS. The Minister mentioned that this is a complex system and they were trying to bring in something new in British Columbia to gather all of this kind of information. Did the Ministry initially look at a system that was already doing this in another jurisdiction in Canada or even in North America, where the bugs may have been already put to rest before deciding on a system that has cost us, over $90 million and has still got problems?
Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. And yes, we did. And the reality is that there are no off-the-shelf systems then, and there are no off-the-shelf systems today. So one is, if one hopes to do this kind of important work into a customized system, which we have and which I think, again, has not been problem-free, but nevertheless has been an important and constructive tool and will, as it is perfected, be an even better tool.
Member.
And just one last point of clarification, Honourable Chair. When the Minister says that a report will be released, that means it will be released freely, or does that mean that we'll have to do an FOI request and wait several months to get the report? I'm taking the Minister at his word that it will just be simply released here in the House or whatever.
We expect it to be publicly available, likely posted on the website. We don't expect that people would have to go through any FOI process to have access to it.